Welcome back, collective. And today I am joined by my cousin, Cassandra. This is another episode in the continuation of the In Her Honor Mother's Day series. Welcome, Cassandra.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here with you this morning.
Hmm. So, you could describe Cassandra as a steady force behind the scenes and a source of strength for others in transition. As an executive staff assistant supporting senior leadership in the retail sector, she brings precision, discretion, and a deep understanding of how to keep complex operations moving seamlessly. Her
Mhm.
professional presence is grounded in years of experience, not only in corporate environments, but also as a former entrepreneur who built and led her own successful ventures. Beyond her career, she is the mother of two adult sons, a role that has shaped her resilience, perspective, and unwavering commitment to grow. Her passions for faith, fashion, and interior design continue to influence both her personal life and the way she connects with others, bringing creativity and intention into everything she does. Today, she also serves as a divorce care facilitator, walking alongside individuals as they navigate healing after divorce or separation. With empathy, wisdom, and lived experience, she creates space for restoration and hope, helping others move forward with clarity and renewed purpose. So, welcome again,
Mhm.
Cassandra. So,
Glad to
as I
be here.
mentioned earlier, Cassandra is also my cousin. Her mother was just sounds so crazy. Her mother is, and you can see her in the background. She has her back. And she's looking at me, making
All
sure I get
right.
this question right because that's who she was.
Oh, start with you.
So her mother was my father's oldest, one of his older sisters. Yeah.
We have a big
So
family.
we do. We have a big
Very big
family.
family.
And my grandmother passed away. She told everybody to do whatever Aunt Virginia says. So my aunt had a way of wrestling the boys into shade.
They
So
listen to her. They listen.
they did it.
They
They
did.
did it. Her word was law. So we will get started. I'll let Cassandra share my aunt. We can
Right.
do that because we are not lying. Okay. So
Okay.
tell us a little bit about your mother. Who was she
Mm.
beyond the title of mom?
Virginia. That's Virginia LeJune Bolin. Like my cousin said, Virginia was one of the oldest daughters
Mhm.
of my grandmother's. Actually, she was my grandmother's actual oldest
Yes.
daughter. And my
Oldest
mother
child,
is,
right?
pardon me, the oldest
She's
child.
oh,
Yes. Yeah. My mom is the very oldest. And my mom is, she's just a very strong woman, just very, very strong woman. And she moved with, there's like an excellence about her, you know? My mom was always on time. She was very particular about she didn't like being late to nothing, but she was always on time. And she had high expectations for us, as her daughters growing up. Virginia, she was also a little bit misunderstood, but she was very, very passionate about things. She was so hardworking. I mean, my mother was like, when growing up as a little girl, initially, my mother worked at like a place called Honeywell, and she used to put together like electrical components for whatever. I don't know, understand what all that. However, when I was in elementary school, my mother became a realtor and she started doing real estate part time. And then while she also worked another job. And then at one point, she decided to be a stay at home grandmother full time. And so she watched my nieces and nephews, and she even watched my oldest son while my sisters and I were out there working. And my mother always said, as long as she was healthy enough, she didn't want any of her children, her grandchildren, she didn't want none of them in daycare. So she watched our children. My mother, so grateful for her because with her real estate, she put me through college with her real estate transactions and her paving real estate, and she blessed me so that I graduated debt free. And so she was just amazing. But she was misunderstood too, though. Because my
mm,
mom was very feisty. My mom was also a fighter. And so growing up with all those boys up under her, because my mother had it was like two girls and nine boys, something like that. And so, they get to fight and she be in there fighting with them or whatever. So my mama was not afraid to fight. And my mom probably started some fights, to be honest with you. Some people say, don't be throwing the first punch. She'd be like, nah. She'd be like, she goes, she wouldn't care. My mom was very bold and very matter of fact. And so
Mhm.
with that, I think that there were times where people had actually kind of got their feelings hurt because my mom would just say what was on her mind, no filter. She was just unapologetically Virginia. And so that's why
Mhm.
I say sometimes she was misunderstood. But I would
Yeah.
actually say, yeah. What else you want to know about, about mama, your auntie?
So when you say that she was misunderstood, do you think, because I think that she had a very, I think when she showed love in a very tough way, but it was still love, and I think that maybe that's the part that, do you think that's the part people didn't get? Like they got the toughness, but couldn't see that there was love. Cause I felt like it's not a lot of people that can read me, but
Mhm,
honey, Aunt Virginia could read me. And, she could
mhm,
check me real quick. And,
mhm.
and I received it because I felt like it came from a place of love and concern.
Exactly, and so see, okay, so you got it, right, you
I
got it.
Oh,
So
yeah.
but that's the part that that's the part that I'm saying that she was misunderstood is because
Yeah.
she was very passionate about her convictions. If she felt something was wrong, she was gonna tell you.
Mhm.
But she was right. There's decisions that I made that she was like totally unagainst. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh no. And she was just kind of like Cassandra. And it's kind of like, hindsight looking back, I was like, man, I wish I understood her
Mhm.
now. I mean, then the way I understand her now. Because I didn't understand it. I just thought that, oh, she's being my mom and she's being controlling or she's
Mhm.
being, whatever. But at the end of the day, really, I see now she just wanted the best for me. She just wanted God's best for me. And she knew that what I was thinking or doing or wanting to do was not it.
Yeah. Because
Hmm.
she was a woman of faith. She was a woman of
She was.
She was. Yeah.
Very, very much. I remember being a little girl and I would come downstairs, and she'd be sitting at the kitchen table reading her Bible. And so I saw her do that all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Hmm.
In addition to that, like in addition to, you know, remembering her reading her Bible at the table, is there a specific memory of her that when you think of it, it still makes you smile?
Girl. Um, there's a lot of them, to be honest with you. My mom was the thing that, okay, so when my mother laughed, sometimes when she got to the point where she was just laughing so hard, she would start to cry. And so she'd be laughing and tears would be coming out her eyes and she'd just be having a good little chuckle and everything like that. But I would say one of my fond memories of my mom was actually when I was a little girl, because me and her would play this game with each other. And I would be sitting in her lap or whatever. And so then she would kind of like pinch my nose and she goes, I got your nose. So she'd do like
Mhm.
that. And then she'd put it on hers. And then we'd kind of do that back and forth and laugh and giggle and things like that. And so that's one of my memories I have of her.
Aw, that's so sweet. That's so sweet. It's so tender. It's so tender. How would you describe your relationship with Aunt Virginia, your mother?
Mhm. Our relationship, we ended up having a very good relationship. I think there's probably maybe a couple of times in my life where our relationship was not very good. And that was because me trying to adult and me trying to find my way, me trying to cut the apron strings because Virginia
Mhm.
wasn't trying to like cut no strings. Okay. She's kind of like, you mine. All of y'all, and none of y'all going nowhere. So I kind of had to establish my independence a little bit. But me and my mom we had a very good relationship. We had a strong relationship and I could talk to her about things, but then there's just certain things that I just wouldn't talk to my mother about just because I know how my mother was.
Yeah.
So there were just some things I just couldn't that I would not talk to her about and to this day would not talk to her about. And um not that I necessarily wanted to talk to her about those things. There's just some things that I knew I couldn't talk to her about.
Mm.
But outside of that, I mean, my mom was so smart and so like she was just very knowledgeable on a lot of different things and everything. And so we would talk about a lot of things. And I felt like she was, that's one of the things that I miss about her now. Cause I was kind of like, man, I would love to get her perspective on this, or I would love to see what she thinks, if she agree, not agree. Um, just to hear her point of view on certain things.
Yeah.
Mhm. That would
Yeah.
really, I miss not having her to talk to just vet things, with her and things
Mhm.
like that. Mhm.
What did um well, are there like when you think of because she was also very family oriented, right? She was also
Extreme.
very family focused. Um, when you think of her, like, are there any like I always say, I find myself sometimes I'll say things and I'm like, oh, that was my mother. Like you say
Mhm,
things and it's
mhm.
like, I used to say that, or my mother did that, or that's one of her expressions. Do you like, are there specific memories or traditions or even things that come up that make you think of her and be like, oh, that was
Oh,
Virginia?
yes. My mom is, so this is one of the things, just I moved from Colorado, where my parents lived in Denver, Colorado, and I moved
Mhm.
out to Texas. And my mom was very good about like always getting the family together every holiday. We were always barbecuing. My mother was smoking a turkey because that was kind of like she was known for her turkey. She was known for her greens and potato salad. People would come over to our house just to come get a bowl of her greens or
Mhm.
eat some of her potato salad and things like that. And that was like not just once or twice. I mean, it's kind of like regulars. And so then whenever my mom had a little get together, she's oh, I invited the Grams and I invited them. She'd tell me everybody was invited to come over because she knew how much they loved her cooking. And so,
Mhm.
but it was every holiday, it was Easter, it was Thanksgiving, it was Christmas, it was the 4th of
Yeah.
July, Memorial Day, it was every holiday. We were always together, family gatherings. It's almost like her food was like uh, another one of her little love languages and
Yeah.
everything. And she,
Yeah.
whip up some pound cake or something like that. And I
Mhm.
remember like for my birthday, I would, I had I didn't want the pound cake, right? But my mother made this 7-minute frosting out of egg whites and, girl, yes. And basically it was just it's like she would homemade a yellow cake and then from scratch, and then she made this white frosting out of, I think she back then it was like corn syrup and egg whites, and I don't
Mhm.
know, might have had some sugar and vanilla or something in it, but she would whip that up, and then you put that on the cake, and then it hardens a little bit, but it was so good. And girl,
Mhm.
I don't know where the recipe I couldn't
What?
you know, if I wanted to, girl, but I miss that cake, okay? 'Cause it was
Did
so
she have
good.
recipes? Did she use recipes? Like, did she use
My mom actually did use recipes,
Mhm.
yeah, for certain things. Because my mom
Mhm.
actually would like to, she liked to cut out recipes and keep them, and she'd
Mhm.
pull them out from time to time, like her pound cake that she liked to make, she had a recipe book and it was in there, and like nowadays, you have a hard time finding mace, but mace was one of the seasonings that was in that pound cake. And it
Really?
was so good. Girl, yeah, I have a thing of mace and I'm still like I like putting it in my peach cobbler and it can
Really?
taste girl, it tastes so good. Yeah. It's almost along the lines of nutmeg, but not quite. It has little bit different flavor to it, but it actually tastes very good. And
Wow.
so she had those cookbooks and then she would but then one of the things that she cooked or she didn't use cookbook, right? Like her
Mhm.
greens. No cookbook, potato salad, no cookbook. But she would like sometimes she'd try out like different ways to make spaghetti or different ways to
Mhm.
make this or whatever. I don't know. 'Cause she kind of changed up. She kind of got into the recipe thing like after I graduated from high school. And then that just kind of became her thing was collecting recipes and doing things like that. So she made this chicken chili that she had a recipe from one of those things. And it was good too. So that's one of the things that she
Mhm.
started doing later in life.
So is there a big age difference between you and Paula? Like, how far apart are you and Paula?
So Paula is 5 years older than me, and Anita is 4 years older than me.
Okay, so not too much, not
Not too
too because
much.
sometimes people say the youngest child has a different parent than the older kids, but
Well,
not so
my
much
sisters would
because
say
y'all are kind of
my sisters would say I got the different parents, yes.
real you got a different do you think that do you think you got a softer, um you think you had a softer Aunt Virginia than they got? You had a softer mom than they had?
I think that they would probably say that. However, I I would say I use my voice, right? Because I mean,
Mm,
Virginia was kind of like, okay, ain't nobody dating until you're 16. You're not, can't nobody wear no black until you're 16. She had these different rules, like, you can't wear black, you can't date, you can't whatever. But I had a guy ask me to homecoming, and I was like 15 years old, and
mhm.
so I said, "Mom, can I go to homecoming because Mike asked me to homecoming." And she said yes. So my whole thing is, you know what? What's the worst thing? I mean, I know that there's a rule, but I'm going to ask anyway. The worst thing she can do is tell me no. But she said yes. So then it
Mm,
was kind of like, of course. And I was like, that's unfair, but I don't know. I use my voice. So I think
nice.
that's maybe a little bit of the
That's the
difference.
diff yeah.
Yeah. I spoke
Yeah.
up for, you spoke up,
Mhm.
but then I also was able to kind of say, okay, well, I also knew what not to do, right?
Right.
Observing the other two or whatever. So it's
Mhm.
kind of, you might have one extreme here, one extreme
Yeah,
here. But I'm gonna go somewhere in the middle.
in the middle. Yeah,
Mm.
I get that. I
So that's
understand
what I
that.
did. I stayed in the middle.
Mhm.
I'm still in the middle.
So the okay, okay.
Mm.
Um, if it's okay now, I would like to transition to her. Like, when did you first notice that things were different with her, like
Yeah.
cognitively? Like, when did
Mm.
you first notice?
Yeah. Yeah.
When did you first notice the changes, and what was that like?
Okay. So my mom, like I guess for those who don't know, my mother actually passed away of dementia, and she passed away in February of 24. She was never formally diagnosed with dementia. My mom was like in denial, and so I started observing things that were different about her. Like I want to say 2018 ish. Yeah, maybe 2018, maybe a little bit 2017. I remember having a conversation with her, and I was like, because I was noticing whenever we talked on the phone, because we would talk on the phone a lot, like,
Mhm.
several times during the week and everything, and so I was noticing that my mom and I were having the same conversation. So, like, I talked to you on Monday, and then I talked to you again, like, maybe Wednesday or whatever, and then we're talking about the same conversation that we had, and I was like, "Mom, we talked about this a couple days ago." And then she goes, "Well, you repeat yourself sometimes too." And I was kind of like, okay. So then I kind of knew, okay, let me shut up. Let me shut up. So I just started noticing that, that she was repeating herself. And then we went on a cruise, and she got a little bit lost. But then in the same breath, I was kind of like, well, these cruise ships are a little confusing. The floors do look the same. But I also had concerns that's kind of like, and
Mhm.
so I remember even saying to my dad, I was like, I'm noticing some things about mom, and because they came to visit me here in Dallas in 2020, and I was like, I'm noticing some things about mom. He goes, oh, no, 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 she's fine, and I was kind of like, no, 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 no. I'm noticing some cognitive type things going on, and I had also noticed because it was like, my mom was a big coffee drinker. And
Mhm.
so after they had left, I was like, okay, there was like drops of coffee like on the floor. And so it was kind of like, like there was times where she kind of like spilled a little bit, but then
Mhm.
she wouldn't even acknowledge or even realize that she had like spilled on herself. And so when I mentioned to him that those were the type of things that I was noticing, then he was just kind of like, no, no, she's fine, she's fine. And, but mommy was also very, like, 'cause, as you tried to gingerly say, I kinda have some concerns about you. I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. Nothing's wrong with me. Nothing's wrong with me. So we never were able to actually pursue
Mhm.
the whole doctor part. Basically, when we looked into it, we found out that she would have had to have been referred from our primary care physician to like a neurologist type person. But then, she never wanted to have that conversation with her primary person, right? But
Mhm.
we were actually able to finally get her into like to do a test because we wanted to, they needed to get a baseline testing for her.
Mhm.
And then let's see, this would have been probably November of 21. And so we went to go get her a test. And so then she was like, oh, well, I'm not crazy. I got, she's like, she went to take the test. And so then our plan all along was to have daddy take it too, so that way it wouldn't seem like it was her and
It
she was
was
just being
her.
singled out or whatever. And so, she's like, "Oh, well, Floyd had to take the test too, ha," and so when the results came back, well, they decided to not disclose what the test results were, and so to this day,
You
I
don't
don't
know.
know what, like, cause she was saying, "Oh, well, I scored higher than he did," and then he was kinda like, "Mm," he just agreed, but he never did share, and so I think that there maybe was something there, but they said that they wanted her to come back and do another test in 6
Mhm,
months, and then, my mom ended up getting COVID, and, she got COVID in January of, 22, and then she
mhm.
had a heart attack in November of 22, and so then that whole 6 month, we just so focused on her health and heart attack and everything, we never even revisited it. So
Yeah.
then she had taken a fall and, I guess in December of 23, and they ended up putting her back in the hospital. So it's January and so that's when she was actually formally diagnosed with
Mhm.
dementia. But I was like, I been knew she had dementia.
Yeah.
I've been, I mean, I was actually telling everybody else
Yeah.
that, she had it, but I think everybody else was a little bit in denial too. But I think it's because I was able to see it and discern it because I didn't live like with her every single day. I was in
It was
Texas. And so whenever I went home, I could always notice things about her that weren't right.
mhm.
So I think just, when I put my eyes on her, I was kind of like, yeah, this is not quite. Yeah. So,
What was it
and
like watching her change? And what was it like?
it was hard. I will at least say this. I'm thankful that she never forgot who I was.
Mhm,
You know how a lot of times they say when people have dementia, they end up forgetting who their loved ones are and all
mhm,
that. It was very hard. It was a very hard season because, as you watch somebody that you love deteriorate, my mom got to the point where remember how I was saying we talk on the phone and then I was calling every day, just to talk to her and everything. And so then she got to the point where she didn't want to talk on the phone anymore. And I
mhm.
call and like we used to call the house, and my mom was always the one to answer the phone. Like, she didn't
Always.
even want my dad to pick up the phone, or if he pick up the phone, "Give me the phone. Hello? Boy, don't answer the phone," whatever, but, she, got to the point where she wouldn't answer the telephone, my dad would answer the telephone, and so then he goes, "Oh, well, Cassandra's on the phone, you wanna talk?" And she's like, No." She would only come to the phone for Uncle Michael,
Mm,
and when she stopped coming to the phone after Jeffrey died. So I
mm.
think that really impacted his death really impacted her. I know that there's a lot of times when I recall her saying that Jeffrey was her baby
Yeah.
and, that, when he died, that she stopped talking on the phone, to a lot of people. Like I said, she had her select 2, maybe 2, like, I think she talked to Martha Sue, who was, Nicholson, who was a childhood friend. They had been friends since kindergarten.
Mm,
And, she talked to Martha Sue and she talked to Uncle Michael, and that's it. And of course
wow.
my dad, but, I'm not sure. She might talk to my sisters, but we didn't. I mean, I don't know. I don't know 100% if they called and talked to her. I just saw her in person, but she stopped taking my phone calls. But I didn't
Wow.
take it personal either though, because I knew that my mom wasn't she wasn't herself, So,
Yeah.
um, she went from my mom was the type of person when she was, like, in her right mind, my mom used to love to do, like, crossword puzzles. She liked to do, like, at the back of the newspaper, all those other little puzzles where you're kinda like, "Ugh, I don't even like those little word scramble things," or whatever. She used to always love to do all of those little exercises at the back of the newspaper. She'd do all of them. And then so,
Mhm,
she got to the point where she wasn't doing any of those things anymore. And then, she got to the point where she was initially, we got concerned about her driving because, she got lost a few times. And then one time my dad went to a dentist appointment and she got tired of waiting. I don't know how long she was really waiting because she lost her sense of time too, right?
mhm.
And
Yeah.
so it was like she was tired of sitting there waiting. And so then he's like, okay, well, he gave her the keys to go sit in the car because she's like, I just want to go sit in the car. Girl, he came out. She was gone.
She was gone. Where did she go?
Virginia Virginia was gone, girl. So we were sitting up here, like, I'm here in Texas, and I'm like, "Oh, no," so I'm calling my friends in Denver, talking about, "Well, let's see if my mom's somewhere. She's in this kinda car. This is a license plate." And I'm like, Virginia was, like, MIA for, like, 3 hours, and so they're, like, really
Really?
that's yeah, I think it was probably about 3:30 when I got the phone call that she had taken off with the car, and so then it's kinda like, "Okay, well, we're gonna," like, after that happened, we're kinda like, "Okay, we're gonna have to put Life 360 or something on her phone." But my
Yeah.
mom, when she was going through the dementia and everything, the phone could be in her hands, and it could be ringing, and she wouldn't even answer it. And it was like she didn't even realize, like, "Oh, let me answer that." It was like it wasn't even in her hands. If she could hear it ringing, she didn't think, "Oh, let me answer that," or if I hear a phone ringing, "Where's that coming from?" or whatever. It was like it was just no, she just didn't make the connection that at the time that the phone was ringing, and so it was,
Mhm.
things along that line, or if she had the phone in her hand, and she would, it's okay, well, you're looking at your phone, but it's upside down, so let's turn that right side up, it's things like that that she was experiencing, and so then it went from that down to the point where when, she after she had the heart attack, she was just kind of just, mm so she had the heart attack. We went to the 8th of August or whatever, but we had a little wheelchair and everything for her to kinda get around in and everything, but she got to the point where she was really just walking so slow and so gingerly and so slow, and so she did get to the point where she was, um, full time in the wheelchair.
Mhm.
And, she just at that point, she was just kind of existing. My heart just went out to her because it was like I remember in January of 24 going to see her in the rehab center after she got out of the hospital. And so I get there and they just have her sitting there in a wheelchair plopped in front of the TV, volume not even up, just got her sitting there. And so I was just kind of like, this is no life for
Mhm.
anyone to have to live. However, I will say I learned a lot about my mom, um, in her last 3 months of life because my mom was a very private person. She never wanted her business out there in the street, and she'd get mad or if we acted like we were about to say something, like, she didn't want out, she'd give us that look like, "You better shut that H up." Um, but she'd kinda give us that look to tell us to, you know, be quiet. But she started sharing things that we never knew about her, like, I never knew or maybe I never my mom didn't talk about like, she talked a little bit about her childhood and everything, but it's one of our intimate conversations that she had. She had mentioned that she's like, "Oh, I didn't have a mother," and I was like, "What do you mean you didn't have a mother?" I'm like, "Epsa was your mother?" you know? But she's like, "She was just a kid, she was just a child."
Wow.
Vernon T, asked his mom if I could, come home with him and stay with him because I didn't have a mother, nobody wanted me.
What?
Yes, and so
What?
when I heard that, I was actually recording her because I said, "So where was Exel?" And she's like, "I didn't know." She said she was just a kid, and so then I went back and I found my grandmother's obituary, and it never dawned on me, when I was older, I didn't realize, it was like I gotta go back and I should have looked at it again before I had this call, but it was like she was 14 turning 15, or
Mhm.
she was 15 turning 16. Maybe it's 15 turning 16. But yeah, what 16-year-old, want a baby, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Mhm.
had never actually really thought about their age difference. I had
Mhm.
never thought about it. And even like when she passed away, I never thought, oh dang, her mom are kind of close in age. I
Yeah.
never thought about it. That
Yeah.
it was when she was just sharing during those months, the last few interactions, she was just very, because back then, I guess when someone's going through dementia, they just kind of like, it's like almost like they're in that state and they're just kind of, I
Mhm.
don't know, she'd be upset about something and she would stay there. She wasn't no letting up, what no. I mean, she was mad about it. something that could have happened years ago. But so it was different because there were a few moments where she was very fluid, but then there were some other moments where she was just, very much in the past where she's like, oh, well, take me home, take me home. And she wanted to go back to Jackson Street when they grew up. That house doesn't even exist anymore and everything. But she was like, take me home. I want to go home. I want to go home. Then there
Wow.
was, she was kind of hallucinating in a way and saying that there's a boat out there and looking out the window. There's a boat out there, and it's like looking out the window. No, we're in Denver. There ain't
Mhm.
no
No
ocean
boat.
anywhere. Ain't no ocean nowhere around here, right? So she was seeing things, and then she said that she was waiting for Exo to come and get her.
Mm.
She was waiting for. She said that a lot, that she was waiting for Exo to come and get her. Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah,
Did she call her Exo? Did she say Exo?
she called her Exo.
She called her not mom, like, "I'm waiting for my mom, I'm waiting for
Mm.
Exo to come."
No, she said she was waiting for
Wow,
EXO to come get her. Yeah, she said, "I'm waiting for
wow,
EXO. I'm waiting for EXO to come get me." Yeah, she
wow.
did. Mhm. Yeah.
So, through those conversations, do you think that it kinda helped you understand her better? Like,
Oh
hearing her
my
say that nobody wanted her, like, it helped
oh,
her understand why she clung to y'all and
oh
just
my
her background.
girl. Yes, and that's why I was like, I wish that she wasn't so private. I
Mhm.
wish that she would've opened up and, like, shared that about, you know what I mean? 'Cause that's what I'm saying, like, I feel like I understand her more in her death than what I did in her life. And, where I thought that she was just being so, possessive or overbearing or whatever, where she, like you said, she was just,
Yeah,
she just loved us and she just didn't, she wanted our love, or she had our love and she wanted to keep it, or
yeah,
she didn't want anything to,
yeah, yeah,
to impact that or uh,
yeah,
change what was established, or, yeah. Because that was very sad to hear, because I was just kinda like, she was like, "Nobody wanted me, nobody wanted me." And then I was kinda like, then it kind of I s think about her relationship with my dad, and I was kinda like, they were married 61 years. And I'm like, "Well, how do you go from, like, being, like" I mean, they were together probably since she was, like, you know,
they were
16,
kids.
17 years old or something. They were She was young because my uncle took her to prom, and but so they were already together when, my
Mhm.
dad went off to the service, so they were already together at least probably 15 or 16. I can't
Yeah,
we couldn't actually they didn't figure out the date. They don't remember when it was, but all of those years, and I think that he understood her, or they gravitated to he understood her in a way that nobody else did,
yeah,
you know?
yeah,
Mhm.
until
Yeah.
the end, right? Like, and he
Girl.
was very protective of her,
He was
very
so
protective. Yeah,
very much
until the end, until, you know
girl, yeah, he was like, "My dad said that his wife is not going in no nursing home." No, absolutely not.
Yeah,
And I appreciate that for him. I mean, and thankfully, she didn't have to go into a nursing home, and unfortunately, things happened when he passed first, he wasn't supposed to we didn't see that coming, right?
yeah.
So,
That was a plot twist for sure.
it was a plot twist. However, I'm so thankful that, because the way they were, it was like there's no Floyd without Virginia. There's no Virginia without
True.
Floyd. So they died close together, and I think that that was the best thing. I like to think that he left first so that he could greet her when she got there. And
Mhm.
that's that's how I like
Yeah.
to see it. Is that, you know what? I know she's talking about she waiting on next one. That was probably there too, but Daddy was there too. Yeah, yeah.
What in what ways do you still feel connected to her, and how do you carry her with you, like, in your everyday life?
Just with how. Mm. She's with me all the time. I think about my mom every single day. Just for me, I feel like my mom is, my mom was always a fighter, right? And so for me, I appreciate that, the strength that she had, and I appreciate the strength that she gave me. And so, like, the way I carry her with me every day is sometimes kind of like, no, I ain't giving up. This is not,
Mhm,
my mom raised me to be a strong woman. She actually
mhm.
kind of raised me to be independent, almost to a, I don't know. It's not. a bad thing, I don't think, but and, my mom always wanted us to be able to take care of ourselves, and she be honest with you, she never wanted us to depend on a man, whatever. She was like not that she would like, I don't believe it was necessarily that she wanted us to be single or me to be single or whatever, but she also wanted me to be able to hold my own, and I've
Mhm.
always have been able to do that, and I appreciate her for instilling that in me, and so I just, so the way I take the way I approach life every day, and the way I interact with others is how I carry my mom with me every day, because I still feel very connected to her just in the way I treat people, the way I talk to people. My mom was a very giving person. A lot of people may not realize it, but I remember when we were little girls, my mom would, she'd give people rides all the time. If somebody needed a ride to church, or we're leaving early so we can go pick up Sister So and so, take them to church. Or my mom, we'd open up our home to, like, let's say there was a revival or something like that. Somebody needed a room to stay in or whatever. My mama opened up our home so that people
Mhm.
could come and stay at our house for the weekend if they needed to. And so my mom she was a very giving person, and she's
Mhm.
just very loving. Walk in that, as far as helping others, paying things forward, being kind, loving, treating people the way I want to be treated, and so yeah, that's how I take my mom with me every day.
Did your relationship with God change after losing your mother?
Girl, my relationship with God actually changed before I lost my mother. I was going through a season. I got divorced in 23, but we started going through a divorce in 21, and it just drug out and it drug out and it drug out. And oh my goodness, that was actually when I got closer to God.
Mhm.
So when my mother passed away, um I already had my faith in I had already been praying and seeking God, and when my mom had her heart attack was actually when I started preparing myself for my mom to pass away. Because I actually thought that I didn't actually think that when my mom had a heart attack in May of 22, my prayer then was, Lord, please let her see her and my dad's 60th wedding anniversary. So that
Mhm.
was the prayer. Please let please let them be able to celebrate their 60th anniversary. And they did. So then the prayer was, Lord, please let my mom see her 80th birthday, and she did. Um, so for me, she lasted a little longer than I thought that she was gonna last. But I had been preparing myself all along. And then after my uncle passed away, and he passed away in April of 23, when she stopped coming to the phone, then that put me in a season of, she's still here. Um, don't take it personal though, Cassandra, because she still loves you. Don't take it
Yeah.
personal. So my whole thing as I've navigated that whole thing and preparing myself for her death was just knowing that, she's not always going to be here. And I kind of felt like my mom died, like before she died physically, I felt like
Yeah.
she was already gone, to be
Yeah.
honest with you.
Yeah.
And so that part was very hard, because it's almost like, well, if I had known that happy birthday in 2021 was gonna be the last time I heard my mom say happy birthday. I think it would have meant a little bit more. I would have paid a little bit more attention to it or paid a little, I don't know. It's just, because my mom was really big on giving cards
Mhm.
and so big on giving birthday cards. And
Christmas cards, relocation cards. I still have
mm,
them. I love
mm,
it. Like she would
yeah.
always send a card.
But you could tell when that changed too, because then initially it was like daddy would like mom would sign and dad would sign it. And then it got to
Mhm.
a point where dad just signed it. So you could almost see, so you could see then
Mhm.
too, where it's kind of like, okay, here, you sign your name. And so, cause it was hard she was difficult to be around in that state of dementia because there's several different stages. There's like 7 different stages of dementia that a person goes through. So it's a progression that things start to get worse. And then they get combative, and so it's almost like you have to be agreeable to kinda get them to do things because, they don't want, like, to be told, like, "Oh, you gotta go to bed, it's late, you gotta go to bed." They don't wanna be told to go to bed, "Oh, you better take your medicine." They don't wanna be told, "Take the medicine," or whatever, anybody's like, "Oh, you gotta take this medicine," and there's times, like, my mom would she was supposed to take her medicine, you find a missing on the floor, you know, and she ended up not taking it or whatever, you know, but she would, you know, she was combative. She didn't want to take the medicine or she didn't want to, you know, like even to get her ready to go to the doctor, you're like, okay, that's okay. We better start 2 hours early because, you know, we may or may not have cooperation today. You
Mhm.
know, and then there was times where she just had in her mind she wasn't gonna cooperate. She didn't want to, she wasn't going to. Then she started
Right.
sundowning, so I remember Christmas Eve of '23, me and her was up until 5 o'clock in the morning because she
Wow.
was sundowning and she was on her round. Ooh, she was upset. She was mad that night to the 24 Yeah, she was upset. She was just yeah, she was fussing and just fussing, just fussing, and I had to
Yeah.
tell my dad, "Don't take it personal, don't take it personal," but he just had a hard time just, you know and I know it's hard for him, right? 'Cause to see the woman that you love, that you have loved for so long, not be in the same mental state that she was, but he was always protecting her, and so he never
Mhm.
actually ever wanted to accept that that was going on with her, and
Mhm.
so he's just like, "Oh, I'm not gonna argue with you, I'm not gonna argue with you. I don't know what she's talking about." I was like, "Dad, don't take it personal. It's the illness. Don't take it personal. It's the illness." Yeah,
Mm.
it's the illness.
Wow. After your mom transitioned, and then, you know, for you live away from your sisters, right? So
Mhm, mhm,
when it's all said and done, you leave to go home and you don't necessarily have them or the things that are like you don't have those things. How was it for you being away, like grieving away from the rest of your family, even though your boys live where you live and you do have a life there, like you have family
mhm,
there in
mhm,
Dallas. How was it for you being away from the place that you were raised and the place that you all called home and being away from your sisters who were also experiencing that loss? How did grief look for you when you went home?
mm. You know, I'm thankful that my job is very supportive because they're very much like, "You know what? Just, you know, you need to, like, don't work this week. You don't need to work this week. Just take the
Mhm.
time." And I tend to I'd rather be busy. I'd rather be doing things, or I'd rather be, you know, I'd rather do the busyness type thing or whatever. But them saying no, I'm like, okay, just have to, you have the different, you know, the crying, the tears, it's just, when you miss them and then, you know, no one teaches you or tells you about the pain of grief until you experience it. Like no one ever can communicate like what that pain feels. Or you just don't hear people talk about the
Yeah.
pain that you feel when you lose someone. And
Yeah.
so for me, it's just, and it's even still, there's moments still where I just cry, right? Where I just, I miss my mom, I miss my dad, I miss yeah, but as far as it's my faith that is God has been my strength through all of it,
Yeah.
and I think also because I was going through, like, at the time when my parents died, I had already started to do the divorce care
Mhm.
facilitation, and so, we talk about the grief, and we talk about the sadness, and we talk about the fear and anxiety and loneliness and all those things, and so that has helped me, my faith has helped me in all of that, the different things that are tied in for the breathing and everything like that wa is really what was sustaining me. It's really
Yeah.
just been my faith in God, my trust in God, knowing that He's not gonna put more on me than I can bear. And then the other thing too that I could genuinely say is, you know what? I would not want my mother still here in the state that she was here,
Yeah.
and so that gives me peace
Yeah.
because I'm like, you know what? She back in her right mind. She up there, they be just praising the Lord, doing what Ginger do, right? And
Cassandra,
so for pardon me?
she's back in her right mind.
And I love that for her though, right? I mean, because I would rather
That
her
had to have been torture for her. Like, that had to have been
girl,
hard for her. Like, do you know, like, if you think about she didn't know, right? But just
no.
knowing who she was to be, you
Mhm.
know.
Yeah. I mean, because even, like, when my father passed away and it was like it was like it didn't, like, register with her, at least, it was like, I told her he was gone, and, because I wasn't in town when they told her he was gone. But when I
Mhm.
was in town, she was like, "All these people coming to the hospital." She's like, "Who died?" And I was like, "Well, mommy, daddy died." And she's like, you know,
Oh.
and so it didn't come out in tears, her pain that she felt, for the loss of him. But it came out in her, she got to the point where she just, "No, I'm not agreeing, I'm not doing that, I'm not eating, I'm not just," she went
Well,
down quick after he passed away,
yeah, she was very what was the
and
time? Because we're talking about the loss of your mother, but you lost both of your parents in a
mhm,
very short time period, both of them.
they died 25 days apart after being married 61 years.
51 years. Wow. Wow.
So
Wow.
for me, it's like, I'm just I'm thankful that they are both no longer suffering.
Mhm.
I'm thankful that even though my mom got to a point where she wasn't in her right mind, when she was in her right mind, she would say comments like this. She was like, I got more years behind me than I do ahead of me, Cassandra. We never wanted to hear her talk about mom, talk about death. I'm like, well, I do. And then she would she would tell my dad, well, actually she said, "Well, you can cremate me." She goes, "But I know Lord ain't gonna want me to be cremated." 'Cause, my dad was very much, he felt like, okay, you gotta have a body to come back to. Dead and
Right.
crash will rise. You gotta have something to rise into. That's how he felt. But she was very much like, "I'm gonna be dead. You can cremate me. I ain't gonna know the difference anyway." She was very much like, so when she passed away, for me, it was a thing where I was like, "You know what? Mama is in her right mind. Mama
Mm.
she's good now. She's good now."
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I would not want her to still be here in a vegetative state. Like if I really want her to be here with me. I want her it's like, you know what, Cassandra? She equipped you to be independent.
Mhm.
Equipped you with the love of God, to trust God. She equipped you to not give up.
Yeah.
Virginia had a lot of strength there. She accomplished and did a lot of things. And so for me, I feel like, you know what? I wanted to continue to live my life and make my mother proud.
Yeah.
I cannot shut down. I can't shut down. That's not what she would want for me. She would want me to go ahead and live my life to the fullest. Cause just like she said, you could cremate me. I ain't gonna know the difference. So,
Yeah.
her whole thing is, you know what? She was like, you better live your life, girl. You ain't sitting up here crying. Don't be crying over me. You better go on. So,
Okay.
but like I said, it's been times where, you just find myself just crying. It's like, dang, I miss my mom. Dang,
Yeah.
I miss my dad. I had mommy days and daddy days. Which one you know, it was hard, right? Some days are like just really, really thinking about my mom. Other days I'm really, really thinking about my dad or thinking about both of them.
Yeah. It is. It is hard. It is hard. I have one final question for you.
Uh-huh.
If you could go back and say one thing to your mother, what would it be?
You said one thing.
One sentence, not just one thing, maybe
Mm,
a sentence. Let's do a sentence.
mm. I would say, I'm so sorry that I did not get what you were wanting me to understand or get at the time. But I want to thank you because of what you said and because I understand it now, I'll do better.
Wow.
I'll
That's
do better.
huge. That's
Hmm.
huge. That's huge. Well, thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Cassandra, for being open and being
Mhm.
willing to share your story. I am so sure that your mother is proud of you and all the things that you have done, and that you are living your life in a way that honors her and who
Oh,
she raised
definitely.
you to be, you know?
Hmm.
So thank you.
Exactly. Thank you.
Of course. Well, collective, that is it. It's the end of our powerful episode. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I love y'all. Bye.